Thank you for listening to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Sign up to our Patreon to receive bonus content, live streams, and our weekly newsletter with money off books and museum visits as well, plus early access to all live show tickets. That's patreon.com/wehaveways.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at Fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
You open the Walmart app and boom! The Reebok and Hanes styles that keep your kiddos on their A game delivered in as fast as an hour. That's right, those comfy Hanes Performance Crew socks they love in the app. And the coolest shirts, shorts, hoodies, and leggings from Reebok? Yep, Walmart's got them. They'll feel so focused in their new gear they won't even notice you freaking out on the sidelines. Shop Reebok and Hanes in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new. Subject to availability, fees, and restrictions apply.
Hey, buddy, watch out! Hey, buddy, watch out! Welcome to We Have Ways of Making You Talk with me, Al Murray, James Holland. As you're probably aware, we are actually at the halfway mark in our Best in the West, or Best of the West point. Is that what we're talking about?
That sounds good. And we're talking in Best of the West point, and we're talking about Americans.
Yeah, Americans. And we worked our way through 7 of our American top candidates. And of course, it's not just up to us. You can go to our We Have Ways Patreon and vote. And we're going to use your votes and the response to this to guide us to a resolution for this argument about who the best generals of the Second World War were.
We'll never have to confront it ever again.
It'll be settled at We Have Ways Fest, and no one shall speak of this topic ever again. That's our core aim here, is to finally shut this down forever, because so much ink has been spilt over so much of this that just didn't need to be. You could be arguing about T-34s and Shermans, and you're busy arguing about Patton and Monty. Anyway, our Americans continue. When we talked about Alan Brooke, rather than Alan Brooke, in the British episodes.
Almery.
Jimmerland.
So weird. Never got to the bottom. No one's ever explained to me why he chose to call himself Alan Brooke. Lord Almery.
Lord Almery. Lord Jimmerland.
Actually, it's got a ring to it.
Well, I think Jimmerland is definitely... Lord Jimmerland joins us now.
Come on, let's get on with it. We've got to talk about Marshall.
Well, we've got to talk about George C. Marshall. But when we talked about Alan Brooke, we very much said, how do you actually, because lots of this is apples and oranges is what we've been talking about. You compare an army group commander to an armored division commander. They're not poles apart, but there are big differences. And in a way, George C. Marshall sits above the fray, and almost literally, doesn't he?
Yep.
And he's such a big figure, and he's so important to the American conduct of the War Office. Basically, nearly everyone we've talked about in the last American episode, at some point, the person has come into Marshall's orbit and been spotted and been sort of had their card marked, right? He's a core person in the process that the Americans undergo as they put the war effort together. So he's from Pennsylvania, born in 1880.
Yep. So, he's old.
He's old. That's right. Yeah, he's a senior person. He, graduates the Virginia Military Institute in 1901. So, well before all the sort of starry generals we've been talking about. But he's very dedicated, he's calm, he's exceptional organizational skills. So it sounds quite unlike me. And He's served in the Philippines in 1902, 1903. He's a turn of the century active soldier, isn't he? Goes to France in the First World War as part of the American Expeditionary Force. He's involved in the Meuse-Argonne offensive. And he's spotted by General John J. Pershing, who's the sort of previous generation, for his organizational brilliance. And then, it's the interwar period. It's the same thing. But the point is, he's that much older than all the people we've been talking about so far. 15 years older than most of them.
Well, he becomes chief of staff in September 1939.
Yeah.
And he's still chief of staff in August 1945.
That's actually the really important thing. And
it doesn't get in until end of 1941.
Yeah.
He is there for the whole thing. He is without question the architect of US grand strategy. I know Phillips, Payson, O'Brien would argue for Leahy and having a greater role, who's the direct advisor to Roosevelt. But again, Marshall is this towering figure. He is the guy who, along with Roosevelt, has overseen the transformation of America as the 19th largest army to, the biggest in the world. The balancing of political constraints, the inter-allied relations which he has to manage. His role as a talent spotter, I think, is really important. He is the guy who spots Eisenhower, Clark, Bradley. I mean, these are all his appointments.
Yeah. What is really striking about that is it's when he's appointed chief of staff on the 1st of September 1939. And that's the day him and Roosevelt decide they've got to turn the army around. Before the war in Europe, or the day the war in Europe has begun, the prescience and then also political capital that has to expend on that is, critical to the development of the American army. And, this is the high point of isolationism, and they decide to expand the army.
And he is also, and post-war, he's also arguably the most successful Secretary of State ever.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so obviously a titanic great man, but he's not a battlefield commander. So I'm just going to exclude him from my own personal list on this. Although I think he is, I think he's one of the great figures of the Second World War.
Yeah,
because it's just this problem of sort of comparing a battlefield commander or even an army group commander with someone like him, which is a much more political role. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But in that political role, managing the armed forces, he is supreme. I mean, he is incredibly good. And aren't we lucky the Americans appointed him in September 1939?
I think we can say that we are. Next on our list, though, Lieutenant General Troy Middleton. Now, I'm a bit of a fan of Troy Middleton.
Yeah, me too.
Because, again, he's born in 1889.
Brave as a lion.
Yeah, Hillsborough, Mississippi. Grew up on a farm, attended Mississippi Agricultural and Mechanical College, and then joins the Army as a private on the 3rd of March 1910, because he's unable to enroll at West Point. Still too young. He's only 19 and too young to apply for commission. Promoted to corporal after 27 months. Passes the exams to become an officer in 1912, but not commissioned until 1913.
To teaches himself, he's like Gavin. He just goes, right, I'm going to do this. He's incredibly sporty. He's a brilliant American football player, but he's good at all sports, even though he's sort of, in later life, when you see pictures of him, he's kind of got round spectacles and he looks a bit bookish. Back in the day, he was like Mr. Hunk.
Yeah. Well, so then he's involved in the hunt for Pancho Villa.
Yes, in Mexico.
Because that's the other thing to remember about the American armies. They're doing that stuff like that as well.
Which seems to sort of belong to the kind of days of the American West, revolvers and things. And do you know what I mean?
Yes, and there's a whole thing where Patton uses motor cars for that, which blows everyone's minds. And, he picks up a Distinguished Service Cross, a Silver Star in his time in France, and then grinds his way through all these regimental and staff assignments. He's an instructor at Fort Benning. We're slipping into the axiomatic. He's an outstanding trainer. He's a great tactician.
But he sees time in the Philippines.
Exactly.
He becomes good friends with Eisenhower. But he retires from the army in 1937 as a half colonel. Thinks, that's it, I'm done. But then, after Pearl Harbor, offers to rejoin, and so does as a lieutenant colonel on the 20th of January 1942. Within 6 months, he's a brigadier general and posted to 45th Division. And before the summer is out, he's promoted again to major general and given command of the 45th Division. And this is part of the old clearing out of the old guard, which might seem odd for someone who's already retired from the army once. He's actually pretty dynamic, and he's clever, and he's been there, and he's got the T-shirt, and he's actually seen lots of action. And he commands the 45th Infantry Division on the stateside. He's not involved in North Africa. Posted North Africa in April 1943 for planning for Husky, but he's not he doesn't actually take part in the Tunisian campaign. He then leads the 45th Infantry Division in Husky, so the invasion of Sicily. Again, does really, really well, Does really well at Salerno.
Yeah. And then, and we talked about this, he has a problem with a long-term chronic knee injury.
Yeah, which he suffered during, his football days.
Yeah, and he's in hospital in Naples by late November 1943. It looks like his war's over. He's sent back to the US to recuperate. There's this really brilliant thing, Eisenhower saying, I don't give a damn about his knees. I want his head and his heart, and I'll take him into battle in a litter if we have to. And you're like, that's how they rate the guy.
Yeah. And if Ike rates him, then who are we to kind of disagree?
Well, but also, if Ike rates him, who's anyone else to disagree within the American? Ike gets what he wants, right? So he's sent back to take command of 8th Corps in February 1944 with a physio in tow, sergeant physiotherapist, to take over from a General Emil F. Reinhardt, sounds like he might be on the other side, who's brought 8th Corps from the US, but has no combat experience, and then is obviously part of the second wave with 1st Army in Normandy. Comes on the 11th, they land on the 11th June, and, fights in the Cotentin Peninsula.
There's a sense that he can sort of nurture people and take them on, and he can turn sort of, not great divisions into really good divisions and so on. And late July, he's also, along with Collins' 7th Corps, he's in part of Operation Cobra. And again, they do really well. Incidentally, he's personally warns General McNair to keep away from the bombing that obviously kills him.
That kills him.
When General McNair's killed on the 24th in the first bit, isn't it? And originally he was, 8th Corps rather, is supposed to be part of 3rd Army. Gets moved into 1st Army just before D-Day. Yeah. And now gets moved back again on the 1st of August when 3rd Army comes into being. And he has 2 armored divisions, 2 infantry divisions. And he is, at this moment, at the beginning of August, with Patton now in charge, he is momentarily a bit thrown by the kind of cut and thrust of armoured warfare. But he adapts, that's the point. And he does very well in Brittany. He kind of mops everything up. From criticising him, 7 weeks later, Patton gives him the Distinguished Service Medal, says, you're the man. So there's a sense of adaptability in Middleton, I think, which is really
The moment he really shines, though, is in the Battle of the Bulge, isn't it? When it's his corps that are holding the thin defended sector in the Ardennes, including Bastogne. He recognises for what it is, organises 101st Airborne to garrison Bastogne as a strong point, block that nodal point for the Germans. He runs all the delaying actions, defensive withdrawals to buy time for people. It's him decides to hold Bastogne. I know everyone knows it's Easy Company who do that. I'm aware that everyone knows that Easy Company make that decision to win the Battle of the Bulge on their own. But it's actually it's Troy Middleton whose decisions and his ability to react as the German cascade of offensives comes at him and to stay cool. And again, cooperating very closely with Patton to enable the relief of Bastogne. And I think because he's come through the army as a private, because he's self-taught, you get this feeling that it's not about a career, it's about what it means to him somehow. I like the guy.
Yeah, me too. He avoids flamboyant. He's not a show pony, but he's kind of decisive, isn't he? He's clearly got great tactical judgment. He's composed. He's smart as anything. A good man in a crisis. And a good man not in a crisis, frankly. But Patton calls him one of the ablest corps commanders in the US Army, and that's the point. He doesn't get beyond corps.
But the question is, though, because this is the name of the game, is he better or worse than General Alexander Patch?
Wow.
Yes, that's what we're doing here.
Well, Patch is another of the forgotten men, isn't he? Largely because he's in 6th Army Group. He's Dragoon.
He's been in the East. He's been at Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands. He's been the other end of the world.
Yeah, well, I think that's an advantage in my book.
Yes, but it's one of the reasons you end up when you get to the West, you may be that little bit lower down the pecking order, not quite as well known. You haven't been in the spotlight because the European theatre is an easier place for journalists to go, for instance. One of the things that Bradley does is he makes sure he's talking to the press, keeps them ticking over. Patton is very good at delivering copy. The public focus is on on the European theatre battles, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so if you've spent 2 years in Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands, you might not be on the tip of everyone's tongue, right? And I think that partly Patch's problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, let's just very quickly, he's born in 1889. He graduates from West Point in 1913. He's with the 18th Infantry Regiment, part of the 1st Infantry Division, which, of course, the 18th Infantry land on Omaha on D-Day. And he sees plenty of action in France, fights in key battles of Cantigny, Soissons, Meuse-Argonne offensive, gets the Distinguished Service Cross for heroism, interwar service, mixture of regimental and staff posts, instructors, graduates from General Staff School, Army War College, tick, tick, tick. And, by 1940, he's a colonel commanding 47th Infantry Regiment. He's a little bit older than the others, most of them. He just is a bit. Promoted Major General in May 1942, assigned to the South Pacific, takes command of 14 Corps in December 1942 during the Guadalcanal campaign. And he replaces the Marine General Alexander van der Grift, big figure in the Pacific War. as the overall ground commander on the island. So, Lawton Collins, for example, who we've talked about already, he's serving underneath him at this point. So directs joint Army Marine operations, which I think is important, and gets high praise for his ability to coordinate Army, Marine, and Allied units. So, and in challenging jungle warfare conditions. So pretty impressive. New Georgia campaign.
Then returns to the US, is reassigned to the European theatre, promoted to Lieutenant General in March of 44. He's given 7th Army, who are training in North Africa for the invasion of southern France. So for Dragoon.
So this is after Patton's been sacked.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, so when we talked about divas, if you are part of Dragoon, you are not top of everyone's list, are you, of adventure and excitement? You can advance briskly into the Alsace if you want, but people don't know about that, do they? Or care less about that.
But again, he's another one of the few American generals that has to do proper coalition warfare, because I think it's one thing doing it with the British. I think it's another thing doing it with the French, with different languages and stuff. And particularly when the French have got, troops who are not all French. They're also Tunisian, Moroccan, Algerian, and all the rest of it. It comes with a series, a certain amount of challenges. And he's very good on that, and very good on the welfare of his men. His combat experience is extensive. And that puts him in with him and Collins, he's in a very, very small band of people that have seen service throughout the globe. And I think that puts him on a different pedestal, to be perfectly honest. I think that makes him pretty good.
Okay. But the question is, does that make him better or worse than our next candidate, who after the break, ladies and gentlemen, we will be coming to talk about? Oh, well.
It's time to do it. We've got to talk about Georgie.
We're going to talk about George. We'll see you after the break for George S. Patton, who we are going to canter through, which is what he'd appreciate. He wants things done quickly. See you in a moment.
As a contractor, I don't pay for materials I don't use. So why would I pay for stuff I don't need in my mobile plan? That's why the new MyBiz plan from Verizon Business is so perfect. Now I can choose exactly what I want, and I only pay for what I need.
Right now, with MyBiz plan, get our best price, as low as $25 a line. Visit Verizon.com/business to get started today. New lines only. Price per month with 5+ lines. Includes auto pay and paper-free billing and promotional discount. Taxes, fees, economic adjustment charge. Applicable add-ons, prices, and terms apply. Guarantee applies to base monthly rate and stated discounts only. Add-on prices additional. Offers end September 30th, 2025.
Jif peanut butter. It's that jiffing good, it doesn't really need advertising. So instead, enjoy the calming sounds of the ocean. Jif. Ooh, it's that jiffing good. Get your Jif at jif.com.
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew, too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
Welcome back to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Best in the West, part 2.5. I don't know. Look, it's...
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. Second part. Okay. I don't think he would appreciate the cantering through. I think he'd want to spend lots of time on him.
He wants lingering consideration. General George S. Patton. I think we don't really need to say much about Patton. He's someone... If you've heard about the Second World War, then you've heard of him, right? It's kind of that simple.
There's a movie about him.
Exactly. As JR, our producer, says, be wary of any man who designs his own uniforms.
Except Alexander and his hat.
Every rule has its exception, Jim, and you have just found it.
But also, he's older than most. He's 1885. He's graduates from West Point in 1909, so he's a little bit older. But let's face it, he's seen action in Mexico. He's been in the First World War. He's been there, done it. North Africa. He's a man of destiny. He slaps a guy at the end of a Sicilian campaign, having done really well. And we have also said that he's not just a cut and thruster. He's a very, very good operational commander. And actually, it's his operational brilliance, I think, that makes him really, really stand out.
You can't do cut and thrust if you're not operationally sound. It's impossible. You end up off balance. You end up running into trouble. And it's the sort of, when people talk about German cut and thrust, Guderian said logistics is the ball and chain of armoured warfare. George Patton might say that to a journalist, but he wouldn't believe it for a moment. When Patton's talking about, we'll improvise this, but he's not improvising at all. There's the public face he presents.
The guy pissing off the bridge at Remagen or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. The general with the shiny helmet, better way of putting it. He's presenting that, but internally, in terms of how he's running his armies, how he's running his staff, it's all about getting the dead right operationally. And I think one of the things we talked about is over the years is how quickly he learns as well. Is one of the interesting things about Patton.
Well, yes, because he's certainly not the finished product in Tunisia, for example. Alexander keeps him on a very tight leash and kind of changes his orders 6 times to him in just over a month, which is absolutely the right thing to do because he knows he's a firebrand and is worried that he's going to get ahead of himself. And he learns and he absorbs those lessons. And the operational battle he fights in Sicily when he kind of sweeps westwards, which is an easy battle in terms of the combat, but a difficult battle in terms of operational movement, is really, really impressive. And also is an incredibly good, useful learning tool for all those troops that are involved in that. And don't forget, some of the subordinate commanders there are people like Bradley and others. One
of the things that's very strange, though, once the war fighting ends, and this happens to a lot of big general protagonists in the Second World War, once the fighting ends, he doesn't really know what to do with himself. And he's given the job of being military governor of Bavaria by Ike, which is a rotten appointment, really. He doesn't agree with denazification. He wants war with the Russians. He says, what we ought to do is be getting on with killing Russians and all this sort of thing. And he's openly anti-Semitic.
I mean, really, really badly. I mean, he doesn't even hide it. He refers to them as a stinking mass of humanity and as locusts. And at one point, he even calls Jews lower than animals. Refuses to have Jewish chaplains. Eisenhower is really shocked by this. He's known Patton a long time. He's resuscitated his career a number of times, having sacked him after Sicily. Don't forget, he's sacked. There's a reason why he's not an army group commander. He's an army commander, and he doesn't get any higher than that. And he relieves him of his command of military governorship and of the command of the Third Army in October 1945 because of this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how cut and thrust he is and how much charisma he's got and how brilliant he is as an operational commander and tactical commander. That is a big stain.
Yeah.
You just don't behave like that. Monty can be abrasive and tricky and cussed, but he doesn't talk like that.
No, he doesn't.
It's disgusting. And it was disgusting at the time.
Go vote for someone else, therefore, is what Jim's trying to say to you on our
Basically,
Patreon.
Yeah.
Next, General Matt Ridgway. And we talked about Jim Gavin earlier as a sort of airborne pioneer. Ridgway is one of the people who also spots airborne as an opportunity and gravitates towards it and is tangled up in the sort of airborne shenanigans of the Second World War. And Ridgway...
And J. Mac absolutely loves him. John McManus loves this guy.
He's a really impressive character, though. Really, really impressive character. He's at West Point in 1917 in this accelerated class. He's born in 1895. His dad's a soldier, artilleryman, a gunner. And so he knows the army. He's grown up on army postings and doesn't see combat in the First World War, but goes to China and Nicaragua. That's how we say it now, isn't he? He serves in the 15th China. Infantry Regiment in China from 1925 to 1927. So he's been around the block. Commander, General Staff School, Army War College, 35, 37 respectively. He goes into the War Department. He's an instructor at West Point.
He's also kind of, the classic American, isn't he? He's sort of square-jawed and kind of looks tough and looks like, he's an amazing sportsman. And if you looked at him, you would know it couldn't be any other way.
I mean, there's lots and lots of images of him sort of staring into the middle distance, looking sort of decisive and
and he's got sort of 2 lines either side of his mouth, and his jaw is about as square as a breeze block, and
that's right, yeah. And there's a Life magazine cover, and there he is.
He looks like an American general in a way that no Brit ever could.
Exactly right. There's great pictures of him with sort of field dressing on his jump on his webbing on his jumpsuit, and But he's so integral. He's integral to the US Army's 1st Airborne, which is 82nd Airborne. And we talked about how Gavin's involved in writing the manual. It's Ridgway who takes 82nd Infantry Division from Bradley. I mean, this thing, all these people tangled up together, and creates the US 82nd Airborne. And it's all about, physical, being fit, unit cohesion, small dispersed combat teams, all this sort of stuff. Does he learn to parachute? I can't remember. Does he always arrive by glider? I think he does learn to parachute, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, he does learn to parachute. Yeah.
He's there doing the stuff that airborne commanders have to do, where he's grabbing in Husky, he's grabbing together the guys he can find, scattered landings, all this sort of thing. He's very, very good at being that counter-attacking, aggressive airborne officer and running those sort of operations. And then again, Avalanche, they drop again, 504th Parachute Infantry are dropped in daylight. It's the hallmark of his style that people are aggressive, they're fit, they're tough as nails, they're salty, and all that sort of thing. And this the sort of trademark of the fighting that US 82nd Airborne engage in. And then because they've been so successful, he is sent upstairs after Normandy, isn't he, to command 18 Airborne Corps, which is basically 82nd and 101st Airborne. They're part of 1st Allied Airborne Army for Market Garden. It's quite interesting because he turns up, doesn't he, Ridgway? He shows up and comes in and tries to sort of coordinate the British and the airborne people during Market Garden. And he's, successful in that. I always think during Market Garden, he feels a bit like a spare prick. You've got the generals on the ground who are doing what they can to run the battle. And he sort of turns up wanting to get his thumbprints on a victory, perhaps, maybe a bit. What he really wants to be doing is running one of these divisions, and then, of course, he's away for the Ardennes, isn't he? And has to return from a conference.
Yep, but hurries back. He gets there in time. But he's not there at the crucial bit, obviously, because that's when Gavin takes over from him.
That's right. Yeah. And both the airborne divisions are deployed again. 101st, as we know, at Bastogne, on their own, without anyone else. And US 82nd in the western side of things in the Bulge battle. He's one of these people. It's a bit of a shame he's promoted in a way, because he's just such a fantastic divisional commander. He's just brilliant at it.
Yeah, but I still think he's good when he's 18 Airborne Corps. I still think he has an ability to influence stuff because people listen to him. When he enters a room, people stand up. He has this incredible sort of presence. Everyone knows. He's always carrying a carbine and grenades in his belt. He's always at the front line. He's never shirking he's a very visible commander. He's a true pioneer because he is integrating airborne. He's developing airborne operations. I mean, so is Gavin, but he's senior to Gavin. So he's integrating airborne operations, and he's also making them work with more conventional forces. And I think that's makes him stand out. And then, of course, he's theatre commander in Korea later on.
Yeah, well, after MacArthur's fired, isn't he? I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Takes over. Right, General Bill Simpson, Jim.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this guy. I'm really, really, really big fan. Tall, thin, amazing coalition general, spends a lot of time serving under Montgomery. Born in 1888, graduates from West Point in 1909, so he's a little bit older. He has served in the First World War. 33rd Division, takes part in the Meuse-Argonne offensive, gets wounded, Distinguished Service Cross. These are all big ticks. All the staff staff schools and stuff, and War College, does all that. He's Brigadier General by October 1941. But he is training in the US for much of the war, and it's not until September 1943 that he's given command of 12 Corps. 12 Corps are initially based in the UK preparing for Normandy, but then Simpson gets reassigned to command the newly formed US 9th Army before it even enters combat. So his first taste of kind of frontline combat since 1917 is in 1944 as an army commander. So it's a huge leap. Now, someone somewhere has seen huge potential because he does an absolutely superb job. He's one of for my money, in the Northwest Europe campaign, he is the top dollar US Army commander. He really is fantastic. Ninth Army has a fantastic campaign. The Ruhr operations, the Battle of the Bulge. I mean, they're on the edge of that. The crossing of the Ruhr and the Rhine, the encirclement of the Ruhr. This is all him. He is the first person. It's Ninth Army that gets the furthest. They're the first across the River Elbe. They're all primed to sort of go on and take Berlin, but Eisenhower calls them back. He is someone who he's quiet and methodical as a person, values planning and logistics over showmanship, doesn't seek media attention, which is why he's not really known. But he has a fantastic command technique. He makes sure he speaks to his corps commanders every single day without fail. He's a brilliant coalition officer. Works incredibly well with Monty, and also with Bradley. He's got a very kind of sort of even temperament. He's smart. He's self-assured. He has kind of incredible presence. He's no kind of rollover by any stretch of the imagination. Tactically, he's very astute. Operationally, he's spot on. Strategically, he gets a big thing. So he is an absolutely complete army commander. You cannot fault him in any way whatsoever. Where he loses points in this is that he's a late entry.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that works against him, because otherwise he's right up there as one of the very best.
Okay. And then finally, General Lucian K. Truscott. I always think Lucian's one of those first names you think, yeah.
He's a very cool guy, though.
He is cool. Born in January 1895, Chatfield, Texas. Raised in Oklahoma. Was a school teacher before joining the army.
Doesn't go to West Point.
No. So that's something, isn't it?
Yeah, he's commissioned as a cavalry officer in 1917.
So he's done border patrol on the Mexican border, cavalry postings in the Philippines in the non-imperial American Empire. He goes to the cavalry school at Fort Riley in Kansas.
Yeah.
Horsemanship and discipline. But he knows mechanization's coming. By 1940, he's a lieutenant colonel. By 1941, he's a colonel involved in mechanizing the US Army.
Yeah, and he's sent over to Britain. He's one of the first senior commanders to go over as a brigadier general over to the UK in 1942. And Marshall gives him the task of kind of creating a new equivalent to the British Commandos. The role of actually commanding them is given to William O'Darby, but he's the guy who instigates it, and they become, of course, the US Army Rangers. And he's the guy who, he's attached to combined operations, then commanded by Mountbatten. So he learns from then. Again, he's very good on coalition warfare, all the rest of it. He commands the 3rd Infantry Division during Operation Torch. 3rd Infantry Division are, to my money, they are the daddy. They are the single most impressive US infantry division in World War II. That's full stop. They're everywhere, and they see the most action. They see more days of combat action than any other. And that's the home of Audie Murphy, the most decorated serviceman of World War II, etc., etc. And he commands that until he takes over 6th Corps at Anzio after Lucas is sacked. And he is just very, very good. So he sees action in North Africa, in Italy. He's Operation Dragoon, southern France, and when Clark becomes the Army Group Commander in Italy, he takes over command of US 5th Army. So he is really, really tip-top. And he is not as well known because he's not an army commander in Northwest Europe. He's in Italy. He's very dynamic and thrusting. He's skilled in amphibious operations, mountain warfare, combined arms. He's pragmatic, innovative, and everyone loves him. He has a reputation second to none. So he's right up there.
But his problem is he's fighting in the theatre that people haven't got their eyes on quite as much. And so that's why maybe Lucian Truscott isn't the top of people's lists. Right, so there we are. The Best of the West American edition. Go to the Patreon, please, and vote. And we're going to just do our top 1, 2, and wild card.
And a few famous that are not included.
Yes, it's quite difficult, this, actually.
Well, John Lucas, because he got sacked and he wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Hodges, because he was not the greatest. He's an army commander, but he's just not very good. Coulter is absolutely brilliant, but doesn't get beyond divisional. Friedendahl was absolutely hopeless and got sacked, quite right. General John Lee was a logistics man, doesn't really count. Geoffrey Keyes did okay in Italy as a...
Jesus Christ himself, Lee. That was his name, wasn't it?
Jesus Christ himself, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Jesus Christ himself, Lee. Geoffrey Keyes, 2 Corps commander in Italy. He's serviceable, but nothing. Other honourable mentions: Terry de la Meza Allen, brilliant commander of the 1st Infantry Division before he's sacked at the end of Sicily by Bradley, actually. John Ironmiker Daniel takes over as 3rd Division commander. Charles Corlett, who's really, really good, who gets sacked for no reason. Do you remember after crossing the Rhine?
Yeah.
Leonard Guerau. And Maxwell Taylor, is also pretty good.
But who are your top 1, 2, and your wild card?
Well, what are we going to do about Eisenhower?
I think, unfortunately, we have to put him aside.
Because he's too elevated.
This
is battlefield commanders, really, isn't it?
We want the acrid stench of cordite, Jim. The rat-tat-tat of the BAR. So I think I'm going to go... This is really difficult, isn't it? I like Troy Middleton and I like Jim Gavin. And then my wild card would be... my wild card would be Collins. There you go.
Okay, well, obviously, I'm going to go for Clark.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for Clark, and I'm going to go for, I think, Collins.
Okay.
And my wild card is also Gavin. I mean, J-Mac's going to be furious because it kind of should be Ridgway, really.
Yeah, exactly.
No, okay, I'm going to change it. I'm going to go. No, I'm not. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to go Clark, Collins, Gavin.
You see, these are the agonies. What you're hearing here is the sheer weight of responsibilities. We settle this argument once for all. Isn't that right, Jim?
Yeah, it is. The only reason I've taken away from Ridgway is because he loses that influence in the second half of, 1944 into 1945. He's less of a role, I would say.
Okay. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's Best of the West, US, our two editions. Go to the Patreon, vote, get into it, do that thing, and we will be returning It's a Germans in our next episode. And of course, the best way to come to a conclusion of this argument is to come to We Have Ways Fest, 12th, 14th September, where you can see, finally, this put to bed so no one need ever talk about it ever again. Isn't that right, Jim?
Exactly. No one needs to ever argue about it evermore. We can just move
It's a public service. It's a public service we're performing here. We're just trying to help.
But I've got to say, I think the decisions on the Americans is much harder because I think it's a much tighter pack.
Exactly. We'll see you all soon. Thanks for listening. Cheerio.
Cheerio.